crucial 30.
The 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 crucial 30.
It's the crucial 30.
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 Hello, 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 world. We are here tonight again with our panel of educators. Guys, tonight with the narrative shift, the Crucial 30 presents the impact on the election has on education. Backstage, I have some experts, guys. I have K-12 experts. I have a higher ed expert. I have experts from all over this country that is going to talk about what matters to education and why our vote is so important, y'all. We are here today to make sure that you know everything that you need to know before you go and cast your ballot. And tonight, what truly means is our children, our next generation, the ones that are going to take the torch and run with it. So we are going to go one by one and introduce our panel. Are you guys ready? Go ahead and tweet, retweet, and post because you're not going to want to miss this very impactful panel. First up, we're going to bring up Miss Dana Boyd to introduce herself. Hi,
Hello.
Dana. How
Hi.
are you?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much for having me here today. So I am Dana Boyd. I am here. I am from El Paso, Texas. I think everybody has become familiar with El Paso, Texas, with the tragedy that happened in El Paso. And I am honored to be here today. I am currently elementary school principal at Parkland Elementary School in El Paso, Texas. I've been an educator now for 23 years. During that time, God has blessed me to be the 2007 Texas Teacher of the Year, the 2007 National Distinguished Principal, 2017 National Distinguished Principal, and I have the honor of serving on the National Governing Board in Washington, D.C. So it is my honor to be here to talk about how important voting is to our babies. So thank you so much for having me.
Yes, thank you so much, Dana. And, you know, I know that you're going to just bring a lot of expertise from all over. And hopefully that your school is watching this and your leadership does not go unnoticed. So thank you for your service because, guys, our teachers and our educators actually provide a service to every single student in this entire United States. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Up next is Monica Washington. Dana, we'll put you backstage real quick. Up next is Monica Washington, my sister. Monica, how are you? Can you introduce yourself?
Hello, Chelsea. Hi, everybody. Yes, I am Monica Washington, and I am honored to be here with you all. I have, like Dana, I didn't know we had the same amount of years in education, but I've been in education for 23 years as well. 19 of those years for me were in the classroom, with 7 of those years being in middle school and the rest being in high school. I have spent my career really championing, I can't even talk because it's been a long day, pushing for inclusive and equitable practices for our students. And so to that end, I am an ambassador for the Education Civil Rights Alliance. I am the 2014 Texas State Teacher of the Year. I serve on the NEA Foundation board, where we think about how we can best serve programs that also serve our students. And so lots of other things. I'm excited to be here with you, Chelsea, because we see each other at work, but now we're seeing each other in this venue. So I'm really happy to be here. With Better Lesson, I serve as an instructional coach and a solution designer, which means I support administrators as they think about how to best serve their teachers with PD. So that's me in a little nutshell. And again, happy to be here and can't wait to engage in conversation with these awesome educators.
Yes, I have the pleasure of being Monica's colleague at Better Lesson. And shout out to all of our Better Lesson family that is watching this broadcast. We appreciate the support. And so, Monica, I'm going to put you down, and we're going to bring up Michael Dunley. Michael Dunley is up next. Hi, Michael.
Hi,
How are
Chelsea.
you?
I'm great. Thanks for having me. I feel honored to be on such a panel with such esteemed educators from around the country. I teach third grade in southern rural New Jersey. This is my 18th year teaching. I'm national board certified as an early childhood generalist, and I've taught preschool, first grade, second grade, and third grade. I was a 2012 New Jersey State Teacher of the Year finalist and a 2020 New Jersey State Teacher of the Year finalist. And in 2018, I also received the Presidential Award of Excellence in Mathematics and Science. I've been working a lot in the area of equity with my students and bringing them into contact with students around the country and around the world. And I'm very excited to have this conversation tonight about this election, as it's so absolutely critical. Thank you for having me.
Yes, definitely. Guys, I told you, we have a ton of experience on this panel tonight, and we appreciate everyone. Monica, I didn't tell you, but we thank you for your service that you have had for so long. Michael, I am here to tell you, thank you, thank you, thank you. Michael is still in the classroom. He teaches third grade, guys. Shout out to all the third grade teachers out there and all the elementary school teachers, guys. We're in this thing together. Trust me and believe we will continue to trust the process. And so up next, I'm gonna put you in backstage, Michael. Up next is Dr. Melissa Chester. Dr. Chester, our founder of Black Educators Rock. All the Black Educators Rock members out there, shout out to you. Dr. Chester, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Why, of course. I guess I'll start with first. I was actually a college professor for over 16 years. I taught at numerous universities, Florida A&M University, Florida State University, Grambling State University, the University of North Florida in Jacksonville, and I actually taught online at Southern New Hampshire University. I decided to transition out of education, and I pursued my passion, two of my passions. I actually, like you said, started a national nonprofit for educators of color and those teaching Black children, Black and brown children. So, I mean, anybody that's teaching Black and brown children is a Black educator that rocks. And I also am currently a real estate broker and instructor. And so I'm always passionate about everything education. I sit on numerous boards. I sit on a board in Georgia for the Georgia Association for Alternative Education. I actually sit on a board here in Jacksonville, Florida, for children who have addiction issues. It's called River Oak. It's a school for children with addiction. And so anything that I can do that helps to push us in the right direction as it relates to education, I'm all for it.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Dr. Chester. And so now, guys, it is time to bring up all of our panelists. Are you ready? And so I'm gonna bring everyone up and get everyone into the studio and into our panel. And I just want to start off, guys. We want to enrich conversation tonight. Educators out there, I know that you're watching. Go ahead and repost this, because guess what? There's going to be a lot of information given. So, guys, first question. Why is this election so crucial from the perspective of education?
Well, I'll jump in there. As a public school teacher and public education, I deeply feel it's important for us to vote, because I still feel, because I am a product of public education, that we have to be able to put the vote out there, because right now there's some worry in regards to the increase with privatization of schools, with charter schools. And it's really important as an educator that we still continue to receive state and federal funds for public education. So I feel without a doubt, we must be able to be concerned about that, right? With the current pandemic that is going on, we as educators are seeing the gap is getting wider and wider for some of our students, especially our brown and Black children, right? Because it's all connected to some of the upbringings. It's not saying that Black and brown children cannot be successful in a pandemic, but there are some concerns that we have. So as a public educator, I would want to say those of us that are a product of public education and know that public education, that you can get a fine education in public education, we need to vote so that money can continue to go to public education to help fund our students, to help fund special education, family engagement projects for our schools to be able to help support that. So I'll stop right there and be able to hand the mic to the next person that would like to add on to that.
Go ahead, Monica.
Yes, you saw me trying. Yes. So ditto everything that Dana said. And I also think that, you know, what she just mentioned about some of the educational disparities that currently exist, that have always existed really in education. These inequities have been baked in and baked in and baked in for centuries. And so we need to elect people who can see those inequities and to see that that has to be priority for them as our public servants, and that they will start to help undo some of the harm that has been done to our students. So that's one reason, added to Dana's reasons. We also, and Michael and I were talking earlier about funding, so I'm gonna leave that to him because we were both vibing on that piece. But we need someone, whether it's the president, whether it's our local leaders, we need people who respect and honor the work that teachers do. I have seen and heard from a lot of leaders who, especially now, don't quite get the stress that teachers are under, and so they go into attack mode. It is already hard that teachers are having to do all these different changes, you know, pivots on the spot. This is a year unlike any other. And so we need leaders, we need to elect leaders who understand that, who support teachers, who basically fund education and see that we have to start working on the inequities, and it starts with funding. And I'm gonna stop right there because I know that was something that Michael really wants to talk about.
I was really honestly combining what both Dana and Monica were saying, because I'm a proud public educator in the New Jersey Education Association, the National Education Association, and we always talk about education as being a promise. And I look at what's happening now as a promise broken, and the inequities that this pandemic has really truly highlighted and been able to demonstrate the digital divide and how much that's impacting the ability to really get through this pandemic and still keep that education going. So that funding part is critical. But in addition to that, you know, we're at a moment with everything happening with COVID that education is being completely redesigned. And at a time when something so important is being redefined, we need to have someone in power who respects and understands what education is. And it has to be a promise that is made to every child, not just some children. And so it's so critically important. And it's not even limited to just, Monica and I were talking, it's not just limited to equity. It's also just topics like, I teach climate change. And so science becomes a football in the arena of education. So it's really important that we have the mindset of leaders who believe in what we're trying to create future leaders in our classrooms. And so it's so critically important.
Okay. For me, of course, I'm going to come from a different lens. I'm going to come from the lens of higher education. I am a proud graduate of a historically Black college and university, Florida A&M University. I got both my bachelor's and master's from there and my doctorate from Florida State. And I think that when it comes to HBCUs, we know that it is very integral that we have someone who understands the purpose and value of historically Black colleges and universities. We've heard certain leaders say that, you know, they're not relevant anymore, you know, they've served their purpose, etc. And I can tell you, they are still very much needed. They have a very tremendous value. And so it's important that people understand, whoever we put in leadership positions, as the other panelists have said, we have to make sure that they understand the lens in which they come from, and that they are understanding our value propositions and how important it is for public education, because a lot of HBCUs are publicly funded, and there are a few private. There have been some leaders who want to do away with public funding of HBCUs. And so we have to get educated and understand what types of policies and places they're coming from. And so definitely important as it relates to education on the higher ed lens.
No, definitely. Definitely. And so, you know, when as we just, you know, continue to push through the questions, you guys have said so much just about funding and about our universities, and especially, you know, from a standpoint of like just the HBCUs, and even just the fact that it's beyond just ethnicity. It is about our curriculum. It's about what we are teaching that relates to so many issues and so many challenges that our world is facing. And so with that said, what other aspects are at stake when it relates to education and the election? Can we go a little bit deeper? What other aspects are at stake?
Oh gosh, it makes me automatically think about just 1619. We know that, you know, there are those that don't want, you know, others' histories to be taught. You know, for centuries we've been dishonest about the history of our country. And now there are people who are willing to talk about others' perspectives of history. And there are certain leaders that don't want to see that be done. You know, everyone's perspective is important. So that's something that immediately comes to mind for me, is just that, you know, just making sure that all people are represented, that everyone is equally represented.
Exactly.
Chelsea, I wanted to come in there and just say from the aspect of, I'm just going to say, as trying to impact educators and also teachers, because to be honest with you, a lot of teachers don't vote. Okay, so we're very vocal, but then we don't go out there and we don't vote. One of the things that I want to be able to say is that everybody's focus now is on the presidential election, but the most important votes that we do is your local and state legislators and those that are running, right? Because you look at the Senate hearings that are going on right now, those are elected officials voted in by us. So we need to be able to make sure that we do our homework on those. Many times we get there to the ballot day and they used to have, like, you can go straight party. But now in Texas, I know they're not going to do that anymore. We have to know our homework on those that are making the decisions for our lives, for our children's lives, for the laws. So we need to be able to get on there, do our homework before you go and vote, because like I said, your local and state policymakers, representatives, they carry on to Washington, D.C. So that's one of the things that I want. A lot of times people don't put the emphasis that it's all about the presidential election, but man, do we have power with our local and state voting, the impact that we can have to be able to swing the pendulum in a different way. So that's one of the things that I want to put out there in regards to some that's at stake, because if you don't vote, those same people are going to continue to make the same decisions that we cry about, but we don't go out there and have the opportunity to make the change. So in Texas, early voting started yesterday. So please get out there and get your early vote on. There's no excuse for us not to be able to let our voices be heard.
Yes, just to join
That
in
is
on what
so key. Your voice has to be heard. Yes, and you know, and just thinking just through just even the elections and the local elections, you all, do you realize how many teachers are in the world, how many educators are in the world, how our voice can be heard? Guys, we can, as educators, shift the narrative at a drop of a dime. Guys, we have power, and our word and our vote counts. And so, Dr. Chester, what were you about to say as well?
Just going to add on to what she said, it's one thing that someone said to me, and it stuck with me, that politics is the allocation of resources. And so often we don't understand that we're not represented because we're not participating in the allocation of resources, because we're not voting for the people who have our best interests at heart. Like she said, primarily on the local level, as it relates to our school boards, our commissioners, county or city commissioners. Those people are the most important people, our judges, etc. And so what I've often noticed also about educators is that we're very reactionary. You know, we're very upset about the laws and everything, but we didn't participate in the hearings and the different things that brought the testings in place, etc. So to your point, Dana, so agree to you. We have to be more involved as educators and not be so reactionary to policy, etc.
And I was just going to add that what we're seeing here is the future. You know, this election is going to determine so many years in the future. We've watched so much progress get undone. And it's so critical to think about what power this election could have in the long lasting effects of the decision. So it's critical that we look at the inclusivity and how can we bring every child into this and have them represented in our educational system in a fair and equitable way. And it will be years. The impact of this decision will play out for years.
Definitely.
Absolutely. I was going to add to what Dr. Chester said about just the 1619 project, right? So I think educators don't often make that connection, and I'm connecting back to Dana as well, that who we vote for often will dictate what we are allowed to do, what we can do, what curriculum we put in front of our students. So the things that we don't like about the curriculum we have to teach, that's directly tied to the people that we're voting for or that we're not voting for, right? So we, again, this whole reactionary piece of us not really thinking that the people who are right here actually have an impact on what happens with our babies in the classroom. We have to shift the narrative and educate our educators on the power of their voice. So often we're teaching students about the power of their voices, about, you know, the importance of feedback, but then we don't model that in our own practices, our democratic practices. And so we've got to do better there. Not to sound like a lecturer, but we absolutely have to do better in that.
Did Chelsea freeze?
I think so.
I think so.
Yes.
Yes.
You know what we can do? We have the questions.
Yes, we do have the questions.
Yeah.
Go to the next question.
Let's go to the next. Let's see.
So it says,
And
we're in the middle of a pandemic.
Teachers, we know how to
Yes.
adjust and roll.
Right.
Oh,
So it
there
says,
she is.
all right.
Yes,
she's
and
back.
so good old technology. We know something about technology. To all of the teachers out there that has happened to, I want you to go ahead and put into the chat that guess what? We are okay and we will be okay, technology or no technology, but we are in control of the technology. So even when we have technology concerns, guess what? We keep going. And so shout out to all the educators that are doing flexible learning, hybrid learning, all types of learning that's out there right now. Guys, you're our heroes. I'm not sure if anyone has told you that, but I am telling you that tonight. You are a hero because guess what? Without you all, our world would not be the same. And so let's just, let's go on. So we're in the middle of a pandemic. See, that was perfect timing. We're in the middle of a pandemic and there's been several shifts. The world of education has had so many shifts. Oh my goodness. People went from spring break and never went back to school last year. Teachers are stressed. Kids are experiencing a new normal. Parents are just overwhelmed. Yet there has been a lot of talk about the future. There hasn't been a lot of talk about the future as candidates. They're talking about, schools opening up, but what else are you going to do? Elective officials. If you're an elected official that is looking at this right now, what are you going to do for the world of education? And right now, I would like to ask you all, what would you like to see on the agenda?
Well, if we make a metaphor out of this, so education for years, for not all of us, because a lot of us really knew what was really happening. But if you take a house, for example, I'm thinking a lot about houses, and it looked like a nice structure. Everybody is happy in there and it's all good. And when the pandemic hit, we exposed some cracks in the foundation that a lot of us knew were there, but other people weren't looking at. And so now when the spotlight is shining right on those cracks, and those cracks are the digital divide, the lack of internet connectivity, so many different resources that we have missing in one school, and down the street we have everything. So all of these things were there all the time. And now it is time for the people who are on all of our ballots to start talking about how are they going to help bridge these gaps? How are they going to call out what they see as inequities, these things that have been there forever? How are they going to locally, nationally, wherever they are, shine the light on these things and come up with a concrete plan to undo this damage that we've been doing to our babies? So we haven't had enough talk from any candidates, in my opinion, about what that plan or what those plans might look like. How are we going to put internet in every household. So this student doesn't have to think about staying at school 3 and 4 hours late and being hungry or going somewhere else to try to do work that could be done at home. What are we going to do? I am not hearing that conversation, and I would love to hear more about what we're going to do to bridge that divide, because our students are trying to make a way, and they are resilient, they make a way, but they shouldn't have to when we are adults who have opportunities and means to make things happen for them in a better way.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And
I'd like to add, oh, go ahead, Michael.
No,
Go
Dana,
for
you
it.
go.
No, go ahead.
I was going to say that in regards to the Department of Education at the federal level, having a department that is looking to build up education, not dismantle it, and to fund it, not to redirect the funds somewhere else. I think that's a critical piece, because that's at the very top, and then that trickles down into so many different ways. So that would be something I would be very observant of in this campaign.
Right. I just wanted to add, of course, there's academics closing the gaps, this, that, or the other, but I'd like our candidates to be able to talk about the mental health that this is having on our teachers. Nobody is talking about the devastation that the pandemic is having, right? Teachers are going to teach and they're going to do what they have to do. But through that teaching, there's a lot of crying going on. There's a lot of their family members who have lost their jobs through this pandemic, and they're just focusing on the teachers' salary coming in. This is hard work for that. I'd also like someone to continue to build up on the little title funds that we get for parental engagement is not enough to be able to do anything. So I would like them to talk about what are we going to do, right? We know that parents now have become certified teachers themselves, but what are our candidates going to do to empower our parents to be able to help and support them to continue? The pandemic is not going away anytime soon. We can go on and say whatever it is that we want, but this is not going to be a quick fix. So what is it that we're going to do to invest in the parents to continue to work along with us? The parents have done an amazing job being put in a situation that they never thought they would be, but they still need help, even if it's basic technology skills. We need to be able to hear our candidates be able to talk about the parents, but most of all, I would just like them to sit with educators and talk to the educators and ask, what is it that you need? I have not seen a lot of them holding town hall meetings with educators. The best advice that they're going to get is actually talking to the practitioners in the profession. So that's what I'd like to see.
Exactly.
I think I'm going to come from a totally different lens, and I don't know if people, and I'm going to make probably an analogy nobody ever thought about. But as someone who runs an organization for educators, I'm going to come from the disposition of the educator. I would like to see some people, some of our leaders, our political leaders, looking at the dispositions of educators. And when I say that, just like we're talking about defunding the police, we have a lot of educators that should not be educators. We have so many that have shown certain types of traits and characteristics, and because of whatever reason, they're still allowed to be in the classroom. They're still allowed to be able to teach our children. But I think that just like we're having like this, everybody's like defund the police, we got to do more training. There has to be some type of training that is taking place as it relates to the disposition of an educator, because we have so many educators who honestly don't like the children they're teaching.
Yes, that's true.
And that's something that it's evident. You can't teach someone that you don't like. That's and true. We're seeing that a lot in the pandemic too. We've seen a lot of things be magnified during the pandemic. And so I've never heard anybody talk about that aspect. That goes into that social emotional as well. Just talking about that disposition of the educator.
Yes, definitely. And, just as an educator myself, I often say that we are dealing with two pandemics in 2020. We are dealing with the healthcare pandemic, but we are also dealing with the social injustice that is going on in America. And so every candidate that is out here, you just heard from 4 individuals that have been on a national platform tell you things that you need to pay attention to. Come talk to us. Come get into the trenches. Go into the schools. Talk to the parents. Talk to the students. Our voice needs to be heard. And I know I'm very serious right now, but education is in my blood. My parents were educators. My grandparents were educators. And we do what's best for kids. And if you want the next generation to be powerful, then guess what? You better start looking at education and getting a good platform for it. And so, just everything. Thank you, panelists, for those answers, because we are going to send this recording out to every political party that we can get our hands on and say, you know what, listen to this part of the session for you to actually understand what is needed in America. And so, just thinking through, a lot of you guys said parents, and parents are our partners, and invest in our parents. And our parents are going through a lot. And guess what? Most of our educators are what? Our parents. And so when you think about the parents, often shield their children from just the worldly churn that's going on. As educators, we take a vow when we step into that classroom, when we step into that role, regardless of it, if it is pre-K or if you're dealing with our babies, out of the womb, or if you're dealing with our young adults in college, we take a vow to do what's best for kids. And so what advice, as former educators, as educators in the system, as higher ed educators, as education consultants, what advice would you give to parents all over this world?
I'll start. I guess I'll start this one. I actually have two very little ones. I have a 10 and 8-year-old. And I guess the first thing I would say is that our children are more woke than we could ever realize. These children are having conversations that adults are having. And so some of the advice that I would give is be honest with your children. Have honest, frank conversations with them. My children, we sit down, we talk about the social injustices. We talk about what's going on in this country. We talk about, they ask me, poignant questions, well, mommy, I thought I was friends with such and such, but he told me that he and his mommy and his dad, they're Trump supporters. Like, they say those types of questions. And I know how Trump feels about Black people, and he said these things. So you have to be having a conversation with these children, no matter what level they are. And being honest and frank with them, and making sure that you understand that they understand. If you're not talking to them, somebody else is. And you want to make sure that you're controlling that narrative that they're getting from society. And so just have conversations, be open.
Definitely be open. And I will say that I know that our panelists might bring up candidates and everything else, but we are a nonprofit. And I do want to put the disclaimer out there that we do not endorse any candidate. We are bipartisan when it comes down to our endorsements. However, when our panelists speak, someone better listen, and they are their views and not the narrative shift, but you better still listen. That's all I have to say. And so, yeah, definitely. Who else has something to tell to our panelists?
I wanted to jump in because I agree 100% with the doctor there, because honestly is what, if we're teaching the future leaders of this country right now in my classroom, how are we going to empower them to fix the problems of society and the planet if we're not being honest? So, it's 100%. I was teaching climate change today, and the student said, "Why are you so passionate about the climate change?" And I told them, because it's going to be your problem. You're going to be the one that has to help fix it. And so you all need to, the 22 kids that I was teaching this morning, they're the ones who are going to go off and help fix these problems. So the honesty is so important. So I had to echo what she said.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and I'll just add, not much, but just to say yes, bravo, ditto to those of you who just spoke. And our students, our children, they know anyway. As Dr. Chester said, they know, they see. What they don't necessarily always do is understand. And so that's what we can provide. We can provide that understanding. Sometimes even when we don't understand, we can at least have that conversation and say, like, this isn't something that I, as your parent, even understand. But let's talk about why we think some of these things may be happening. And to Michael's point, right, these are the people who are going to hopefully fix some of the issues that we see. So if we shield them all the time from the things that we, and it's with good intent, right? We don't want them to be hurt. If we do shield them and then they go out into the world and they're now seeing all of these things for the first time, we don't want that shock. We want them to go into the world prepared, having seen that there are issues, there are still really good people and good things that are happening, and they have to see where their places are to push in and make those changes that need to be made.
Right. And I just want to add from the perspective, like I said, of the parents, I do want to give a shout out to the parents because all of the work that they have had to do with online learning has been a lot on them. So I don't want to take their involvement for granted. One of the things that goes back to Dr. Chester is we've actually had some of our parents call us about the practices that bad teachers are doing, and we wouldn't have been able to find those bad practices if they weren't being recorded all of the time, right? So they're being advocates for their children, and I want them to continue to be advocates, to ask questions. I feel that our parents are probably the most powerful group of individuals as voters. If we're looking at changing the pendulum of education with funding, with equality, because they have now actually seen since March the day in the life of a teacher, right? And how that even superstar celebrities are like, I don't know how y'all do it, this, that, or the other, right? Where we are the most underpaid individuals, I feel parents now have the opportunity to be involved in the schools, to be involved, to ask questions. Whereas before we wouldn't ask questions, especially me being in a Hispanic community, they are, it's seen as disrespect for a parent to ask a teacher about something, but now they're having to ask those questions to be able to help impact their child. So I want to be able to say to the parents, use the empowerment, use the growth that you have seen about us educators, and use that to change policy. You all have such, even on school boards, like Dr. Chester said, we elect our school board members. If you don't vote, they're going to have their friends and their homies voting for them, all right, whether we want them or not, right? So this is, I just want to say, I do. The parents need a lot of shout outs to them too, because those of us that have small children know it's hard to be an educator and try to be a parent too. It's very hard, but just use the power and the wisdom that they have to get out there and vote, to be able to help support education, not just for the teachers, but for their child and their future members of society. This is the only way that we're going to change things.
And another thing that I would just add is to tell the parents, just to Dana's point, that you're doing a great job. Like Monica said and Dana said, like, we appreciate you all, and don't be so hard on yourselves.
Absolutely.
I think educators and parents, and educator parents especially, so many of you are beating yourselves up, and you're highlighting your faults or the things that your shortcomings, and that self-talk is not good for anybody. Right. We need for you to start, just applauding the things that you're doing right, and just keep doing what you're doing, and keep trying, and just know that you have a lot of people who you don't see that are behind you. You don't hear from them, but there are so many people that are sending up prayers and words of affirmation and sending you guys positive energy. And again, that's our educators, our parents, and our educator parents. You guys keep doing what you're doing because you all rock.
Yes.
Yeah.
Amen.
This was the first back to school night where I felt I had to be as equally concerned about my parents' social emotional levels as my students.
Yes.
And had to literally leave them with the message that I was there for them as much as I was for their children, because at this point they are now part of my classroom.
Yes.
I'm in their home, they're in my home, and it's now a lot of students in the class.
Mm-hmm.
And I love that. I love that, Michael. Just, just thinking of it from that lens, we are all in this thing together.
Yes.
And so, parents out there, just like Dr. Chester said, you rock. Michael saying, hey, you're a part of my community. Dana saying, we're in this thing together. Monica's like, hey, I got you. We're rooting for you from behind. And so, we know that it's hard out there, but hang in there. We're in this thing together. And so just to pivot, those same words of affirmation, we've talked to the parents. Let's talk to our educators. Right now, we have educators all over this world. What encouragement right now could you give to them as a principal, as a leader, as a teacher yourself, Michael? Let's talk to our educators right now. What advice right now could you give to your educators? What encouragements?
Don't give up. Don't give up. The kids need you, and we are all so tired, and we're all at a breaking point, and we can't fix everything, and we have to know our limits. We have to take care of ourselves, but you can't push yourself to the point where the only solution is giving up.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And don't worry so much about the things that you've lost or you think that students have lost. Because if you're trying to play catch up and also serve their needs right now, then you're wearing yourself out and you're wearing your students out. So focus on the now. Look at what you're doing now, and you're doing a good job. You are doing a good job. If there is a positive that has come out of, or that I hope comes out of the pandemic, is that going back to what Michael just said about making that new type of connection with parents, with families. This is our opportunity to flip the script. We talked about community schools and how important community schools are, and we've gotten away from schools really being like the center of a community. This is an opportunity for us to flip that and really understand that these things that we're doing right now that we think are really small, they're huge. You're reaching out to a parent, that's huge. You're reaching out to a student, you're spending 5 extra minutes in a breakout room or whatever, and you feel like, oh, it was nothing. It was huge. The things that you're doing that you are minimizing are changing lives, even when it does not feel like it is to you.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Definitely. And I would say as a principal, right, that's our role, is to be able to keep the pep talk up with my peeps, as I say, and just to be able to say what you're doing. In the words of Stephen Peters, he says, on our very, very worst day of work, you, me, and we are still some child's only hope. So whatever it is that we bring, we are still making a difference in a child's life. There's not one child that I've seen as like, I hate school. Our students are still liking to chime in to be with their teacher. But the most important thing that I would say is educators, we have to vote. If you look at the research, it says that we as educators, as teachers, do not vote. And we would have such a powerful impact if we went out there and let our voices be heard by taking those few minutes to cast your vote. If you're in a line for a long time, that's okay. Y'all stay in line for school supplies at the beginning of the year. So it doesn't make it, it's the same concept, but just all of us coming together as educators to vote, because we're tired of saying, why do we have to do this, when we have the opportunity to be able to say, I was a part of this, not why do we have to be this, but I was a part of this. And that can be good or bad, right? But if you don't put your vote in, your voice isn't heard. So that's one of the things that I want to share.
No,
I
definitely.
would just say to celebrate yourselves and celebrate your small victories. Again, like you guys said, educators, we're the most underappreciated, the most overworked, we're the most critical of ourselves. But you have to celebrate your small successes and just continue to be the thermostat and not the thermometer, right? Yeah. You set the temperature for so many others. You set the temperature for children and parents. It's all about you. You are the thermostat. And so always remember that you're the thermostat. And so make sure you're celebrating yourself and you're celebrating those small victories and you're taking time for you, self-care. You can't solve it all. It's impossible. And so many of you, your hearts are so huge and you're trying to do so much. And if you're burning your candle at both ends, you can't light anybody else. You can't pour your cup out. An empty cup can't pour. You do a disservice when you don't refuel, when you don't refill your cup. You're doing a disservice to those that you so passionately want to assist. So continue to pour into yourself, celebrate yourself, celebrate your small victories.
Yes, definitely. Guys, tonight has just been powerful, and what you have shared right now is going to impact one thing at the narrative shift that we say is just one mind at a time. So if this panel has just reached one person, then we have done our job. And so for the last question, as we wrap up, what advice would you give the world as your last statement of the importance of voting, the importance of this election, the importance of climate change, the importance of local officials? What advice do you have?
Oh gosh, I can start with that one. When I'm listening to people talk, and this one it hits home for me, Chelsea. Stop getting caught up on one aspect of a candidate. I see people that would ignore every other negative aspect of a candidate because of one topic. I see it in Black churches. I see it with Christians. Please look at the whole candidate. Look at it in relation to everything that they're talking about, not just one topic that you happen to agree with him or her on. And be honest with yourself about those things. You can't turn the blind eye to 90% of something because you like the 10% that he or she says.
Mm-hmm. I would say that back to what Monica said about this is a flipping of the system opportunity and a changing of the script. So it's critically important who we put in places that are going to have their hands on that script, on that system. So if you want to redefine education, and this is a golden moment right now where we have such opportunity, but with opportunity, there's an underbelly of, you know, the people who will rush in and take for themselves. So it's so important that we really push this forward.
Love it.
I just want to add that there's research, and I'm just going to quote it. The importance of voting cannot be overstated. Research has shown that people are more likely to follow through with their intentions to vote when they make a plan to do so. So make the plan to do that, what day you're going to go. If you're not about the crowds, then make sure that if you're going to do it during early voting. But we need for us to make a plan and follow through, and take your child with you. If they're unable to vote because they're not old enough to vote, then please take them with you as you are creating a memory, a legend, a lifetime for your family and those family members of yours, especially us Black folks. We don't want to get out there unless it's a Black man that's running, right? But our impact can still be made with whatever color the candidate is. It's important for us to get out there. So please plan the day and follow through on it.
Yeah. And to that point, you can take people from different backgrounds, different communities, different states, different whatever, put them in the same room and let them start talking, and you'll realize that everybody really wants the same thing. We want to be happy, healthy, safe, have great communities, great schools. And yes, a lot of that has to do with us getting out and doing our part, but a lot of it comes outside of our control by the people who we push the button for, who are making decisions that we can't change for 2 years, for 4 years, for 8 years. And so we have to vote if we want those things. If we're professing to want positive public education and great public educators, we want to have great institutions, higher ed institutions. I was HBCU too. I want to say that too, Dr. Chess, before we go. If we want to have, we have to put people in positions to help these things come to fruition. And so everybody wants the same thing. So we just have to look for those candidates who align with those things that we all hold dear.
Yes.
If you don't vote, no complaining on Facebook.
That's right. That's right.
And I
You don't
plus
complain.
one that plus 1,000. Oh my God.
Absolutely.
You get your complaint card revoked.
Yes. Yes.
Yes, yes, yes. Guys, we just want to say thank you for this impactful night of just, of wisdom, of knowledge, of connectiveness. Guys, here at The Narrative Shift, we are better together, one mind at a time. And so, when we're thinking about just, diversity, equity, and inclusion, when we're thinking about all of those things, we can't have that mindset of separateness. We have to have that mindset of we are in this thing together. And so take your kids to the polls. Don't just look at one candidate's flaws. We're all human. We're in this thing together. And guess what? We will continue to trust the process. And so right now, we just want to say thank you to all of our candidates here tonight. And we know that your light will continue to shine in all of your endeavors that you go into the future. And so thank you. And that is it, you all. Next week, we will be right back here on Tuesday night. We will be back here. But guess what? There's a whole lot between now and Tuesday with The Narrative Shift. I told you, we are the Crucial 30 days of content until the election. Guys, I know some of my family members and some of my friends are like, 30 days? Are you serious? Yes. We are so serious, and this is a serious matter. Shout out to all my AKAs out there. So with that being said, tomorrow you will have a blog talking about the importance of education. Saturday, you will have inspiration. Sunday, we will have words from our youth, anyone under the age of 18, and their voices still matter. And then Monday, you'll have some voting tips, and then we're right back here on Tuesday for our panel of doctors and why is the election so important from a healthcare perspective. And so, guys, we are powerful together. We will change one mind at a time. And this is The Narrative Shift, and we are having an impactful, crucial 30. So with that said, we sign off to you. One mind at a time.
It's the crucial 30. We have to come together and vote.
It's the crucial 30. Vote. I know you can do it.